Hello and welcome to our glossary tutorial. In this video, we will discuss how the new Smartling glossary works and how you can use it to optimize your translation quality. A glossary is an essential tool for your terminology management. It is a list of key terms that are important to your organization and that should be translated consistently across all jobs. You can think of your glossary as a specialized dictionary for your brand that includes your product terminology, any words that your organization uses in a unique or particular way, your trademarked brand names, important SEO terms, and technical terms that are specific to your industry. In Smartling, you can provide a definition for your glossary terms and add an image for visual context, so your translators know exactly what you are referring to. You can add an approved translation and precise instructions for each language. In the new Smartling glossary, all translations are multi-directional. This means that you do not need to choose a fixed source language. You can simply add the preferred wording for each language. A single glossary can then be shared across all of your projects, even if the direction of your language pair changes. In our example, it doesn't matter if we're translating from English to French or from French to English. We can simply enter the correct term for both languages and then use the same glossary in both directions. If your glossary contains any brand terms or trademarked names that should never be translated or changed by the linguists, you can add an instruction called Do Not Translate or DNT. For example, the name of our conference series should always stay untranslated as Global Ready. So we can define this as a DNT or Do Not Translate term. So to summarize, you can specify exactly what your glossary terms are referring to and how they should be translated for your local markets. This bundle of explanations, instructions, and approved translations for each term is what we call a glossary entry. Your translators and proofreaders can see these glossary entries and all of your instructions directly in their translation interface. This means that they will need to ask fewer questions and they can work on your content more quickly and efficiently. A good glossary ensures consistency across all translations and helps protect and promote your brand. To make sure that your linguists can use and apply the correct terminology from the get-go, we would recommend creating a glossary before you begin sending content for translation. This initial investment in your terminology management helps you get great quality translations from day one and avoid costly and time-consuming retranslation at a later stage. Once it has been created, your glossary will be a living document that will need to be updated on an ongoing basis. As you receive questions from your linguists or introduce new products, you might want to add new entries to your glossary or modify the existing ones. To access your existing glossary or to create a new one, please navigate to the linguistic assets under your account settings. On the left-hand side, you can find a direct link to all glossaries that are available in your account. From this list, you can see the name of each glossary, as well as any descriptions that may have been added. You can check how many entries and how many languages have been added, and easily spot when and by whom the glossary was first created and last modified. From the ellipsis menu, you can edit each glossary. Aside from the import and export options, which we will take a look at a little bit later, you can use this menu to manage the languages which are part of your glossary. Whenever you add a new language to one of your projects, please don't forget to add it also to your glossary from here. To access the glossary entries, please click on the name of your glossary. You can now see a list of all entries that are part of this glossary. This view can be fully customized, and you can select the exact languages that you would like to be displayed in this table. The new Smartling glossary offers multi-directional translations, and there is no fixed source language. Instead, To help you navigate through the glossary, you can pick a focus language. The focus language will be displayed as the first language column, so you can use it as a reference point. For example, if most of your projects use English United States as their source locale, you might want to make this your focus language. To do so, please click on the View Configuration symbol and select your focus language, as well as any additional languages that you would like to display. You can now see a side-by-side table of all selected languages, with the focus language being listed as the first one on the left side. This view allows you to see at one glance if there are any gaps or untranslated terms for certain languages. To make it even easier to identify any entries that are missing translations for some of your languages, you can use the Missing Translations filter on the left-hand side. Of course, you can also search for specific terms. To access all details and translations for a glossary entry, you can simply click into the row that it is displayed on. On the right-hand side, you can now check and edit the description and contextual information, as well as the translations for each language. The Entry Details panel is meant to provide your linguists with a definition and explanation, especially for concepts and products that might be very specific to your company or industry. Sometimes, however, a picture is worth 1,000 words. For this reason, the new Smartling glossary allows you to add an optional image. This image is visible to anyone who has direct access to your glossary. If your entry is referring to a brand term that should always stay untranslated and unaltered, you can click Set DNT, which stands for Do Not Translate. Here you can enter the brand term exactly as it should appear in the translations. Going back to our initial example, if we would like our conference series to be called Global Ready, we can enter this brand term here to make sure that it won't be translated. Next, you need to select the languages for this Do Not Translate entry. Do Not Translate entries are created on a source level. This means that the Do Not Translate languages should correspond to any languages that are used as source languages in your projects and that you will translate from. For example, if you always translate from English US into other languages, then you should select this as the DNT language. Once a DNT term has been set for the project source languages, a Do Not Translate note will be shown for this term across all target languages. If there is any target language that should use a different translation, you can enter a language-specific term. This translation will now be shown to the linguists, and they will no longer see the instruction to leave the term untranslated. For any terms that should be translated, you can of course provide an approved translation for each language. Simply enter the desired wording for each language in the term field. Given that all translations are multi-directional in our new glossary, a term has two functions. If you are translating from a given language, any terms that come up in the text to translate will be detected automatically, and the translators can see all of the available context, instructions, and translations. If you are translating into this language, the term will be shown to the linguists as the approved and suggested translation. Under term variations, you can add acceptable alternatives that can be used instead of the main translation if they are better suited in a particular context. If you would like to add further instructions to make sure that your glossary entry will be translated correctly, you can add language notes, which will only be shown to the linguists translating into this specific language. For example, you could add notes regarding the acceptable scenarios for using the term variations or some capitalization rules. In Smartling, we believe that context is key when it comes to translation quality. For this reason, our new glossary allows you to add example strings for each language. Here you can see the most recently published strings that use the translated glossary term in context. If you are happy with the way the glossary term was applied, you can approve and verify the string, so it will be shown to the translators as an example of a good translation. Equally, if you're not happy with the way a glossary term was used, you can remove an example string. To add a new entry to your glossary, you can click on the plus sign. Similarly to the entry details panel we just looked at, you can fill in 3 sections when adding a new entry. Firstly, you can provide a definition and some context for your new glossary entry. Next, you can enter an approved translation for each of your languages. For brand terms that should stay untranslated, you can fill in the Do Not Translate panel to specify exactly how your brand names or other untranslatable words should appear in the translated content. For these DNT terms, please select the source languages that you will translate from in your projects. Once you hit the Save button, this entry will be added to your glossary. This term will now stay untranslated across all languages unless you enter a language-specific translation to override the Do Not Translate instruction. If you would like to record any additional information that is not part of the standardized fields for a glossary entry, you can create additional custom fields. To add a customized field to your glossary entries, there is a 2-step process. From your glossary list, please select Manage Custom Fields. First, you need to create the field. You can now select the preferred type of field. For example, if you would like to record the gender of each glossary term to give the linguists even more context, you can create a drop-down menu for all grammatical genders here. You can choose if this field should be visible on the entry level, on the translation level, or both. If you select to display the field on the entry level, it will be part of your entry details panel, and the information recorded here will be visible to the translators working on all languages. On the other hand, if you create a field on the translation level, you can fill in a specific value for each individual language. Going back to our example, a custom field to specify the grammatical gender of a glossary term works best on a translation level, so we will select this option and create the field. In a second step, you now need to select the glossary that you want to add the field to. Simply drag the new field over to the right-hand side to add it to the selected glossary. You can now see this custom field if you click into any entry that is part of this glossary. In our example, we can now select the grammatical gender for each translated term in our glossary. Another useful tool to provide more context and organize your glossary are labels. As a comprehensive collection of your terminology, Your glossary might contain entries that refer to various parts of your product or your organization. For example, you could add entries pertaining to your product, some legal terminology, or SEO terms that should be used to help with your search engine optimization. The new Smartling glossary allows you to organize all of these different glossary entries into categories by applying labels. Labels can be created and managed directly from the glossary list. Once a label has been created, you can apply it to all entries that you want to group together into a category. To do so, please click into the entry details and select the desired label from the drop-down menu. The linguist working on your content can now see this label in their interface, so it can help them contextualize the glossary entry. In our example, the translators can now see that this entry contains an important SEO term that should be used to help with our marketing activities. Labels also come in handy if you have several glossary managers who each look after a specific portion of your glossary. For example, the glossary manager curating the legal terminology can filter for this specific label to display only the entries that fall under this category. Of course, you can also edit and import glossary entries in bulk. The easiest way to do this is by exporting your existing glossary entries first. You can do this directly from the glossary list by selecting the option Export Glossary. This allows you to download your glossary in the correct file format, with all of the correct column headers. You can now make any necessary changes to your existing glossary offline, directly in this exported file. Any new entries that you want to add to your glossary can be added to the bottom of the list. Please just leave the ID column empty for any new entries, so our system can recognize them as an addition to your existing glossary. You can now import the edited glossary file back into Smartling. Please select the option Import Glossary from the ellipsis menu and upload the amended glossary file. Once the import is confirmed, all changes and edits are now reflected in your Smartling glossary. To create a new glossary from scratch, you can follow a very similar process. From the glossary list, please click the Create Glossary button to enter a name and description for your new glossary. You will then be asked to select the languages that should be included in your new glossary. Please remember to pick all languages that you are translating from and all languages that you are translating into. So this languages list should include both your source languages and your target languages. If any custom fields should be added, you can select them here. Once you hit the Create button, the new glossary is now available in your glossary list. You can choose the option Export Glossary Template from the ellipsis menu to download an Excel file in a Smartling-friendly format with all of the correct column headers that you will need to import glossary entries in bulk. You can simply fill in this template and add all necessary definitions, terms, and instructions. The ID in the first column should be left completely blank, so our system will know that you are adding some new entries to the glossary that you just created. Once you have added all of your entries to the template file, you are now ready to upload it to Smartling. Please select the option Import Glossary from the ellipsis menu next to the glossary that you just created. You can now upload your glossary file and confirm the import. As a last but important step, please remember to add the new glossary to your linguistic package to make sure that it can be used by your translators. If you would like to remove certain entries from your glossary, you can select them by ticking the checkboxes on the left-hand side. From the Actions menu, you can now archive the selected entries. Archived entries won't be shown to the translators anymore, but they are not deleted permanently. If you ever need to restore an entry that was previously archived, you can use the status filter on the left-hand side to display the archived entries. You can simply select the entries that you would like to reactivate and choose the option Unarchive from the Actions menu. These entries are now part of your active glossary again. If an entire glossary is no longer needed, you can navigate to the glossary list and archive it from the Actions menu. Archived glossaries are not deleted permanently, but only deactivated. When you choose to archive a glossary, our system automatically checks if it is associated with a linguistic package. To provide your translators with all of the information that they need, each linguistic package must contain a glossary. If you want to archive a glossary that is currently used by one of your linguistic packages, you will see a warning message, and you will need to select a replacement glossary. This replacement glossary will automatically be added to your linguistic package, so your translators and proofreaders can use it instead of the archived glossary. Once a glossary has been archived, you can view and access it anytime by clicking Show Archived Glossaries. You can easily unarchive it from the Actions menu if it is needed again at a future point. Please don't forget that an unarchived glossary will only be visible to your linguists once you add it to a linguistic package. If you need more information about the new Smartling glossary, please feel free to visit our Help Center, where you can find detailed information and further guidance. Thank you very much for watching and for your time today.